Now, Russia has condemned the new round of sanctions imposed on the country by the United States, calling the move illegitimate and uncivilized, and saying the restrictions on high-tech exports from the U.S. mark a return to the Cold War. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said the unilateral extraterritorial sanctions are illegitimate, quote, by nature and violate international law. Russia earlier said that it would give a painful response to the new Western sanctions after the U.S. and European Union imposed new sanctions on the country over the crisis in Ukraine. The White House said that 7 Russian officials and 17 firms linked to President Vladimir Putin have been added to the sanctions list. The EU, in a similar move, imposed sanctions on 15 Russian and Ukrainian individuals. Let's speak to Rodney Martin. He's a former U.S. congressional staffer, and he joins us via Skype from Los Angeles. Many thanks for joining us here on Press TV, Mr. Martin. Now, first of all, what do you make of the new round of sanctions imposed on Russia and Ukrainian officials?
Well, clearly, first of all, it's nonsensical to think that these sanctions are going to harm the Russian Federation in the long term. Actually, they will prove to be more detrimental to Europe, particularly Western Europe in the long run, particularly Germany, which relies tremendously on Russian gas. This business of a Cold War mentality, which the West, the European Union and the United States, is perpetrating. When the United States and the European Union, particularly Berlin, created a coup in Kiev and put in place a puppet regime of interlopers, that was Cold War mentality and implementing prior U.S. imperialistic foreign policy going back to the days of the toppling of Prime Minister Mossadegh in Iran and other such black ops type actions. So the analogy of the Cold War is correct, but it's also much more devious than that. And I think the sanctions have far more negative impact in Western Europe than it does on Russia. This is not the final days of the Soviet Union in 1991. Russia has evolved. They have excellent relations with China. They have excellent relations with India. And there has been a move by Russia to develop these trading relations with China and India to basically insulate themselves from these types of economic punitive measures by the West.
Right, so now Russia has said that it will give a painful response to the new Western sanctions. What kind of a response do you see coming forth from Russia?
I think they will be measured, but they will be effective. I suspect that the prior agreements relating to, and I think let's go to the primary one, which would be gas. Let's remember that former German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder was instrumental in developing new pipelines for Russian gas going into Europe. I would imagine that tap is going to be, if not shut off, it's going to be slowed down significantly, which will be detrimental to the citizens of Western Europe, who will probably have significant issues with their government's anti-Russian attitude. And let's understand that people are not stupid. They see now recently these YouTube videos of these Ukrainian interlopers going into the eastern parts of Ukraine and hanging ethnic Russians. That's significant. That's provocation that is going to give the Russians the justification to secure their ethnic interests and geopolitical interests in Ukraine.
Okay, we'll have to wait and see how this pans out. Rodney Martin, former U.S. congressional staffer, joining us from Los Angeles. Many thanks indeed for your comments here on Press TV, Mr. Martin.